Yesterday I told a story that was over 2,000 years old, and this morning I'd like to tell you a modern story, which you might consider a Buddhist tall tale. The Reverend Hung Sher from the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery has stated that we need more heroes, Buddhist heroes in folk tales and stories, and so this is my version of a modern-day Buddhist hero. Many years ago, so the legend is told, there lived a man named Jani Appleseed, who planted apples in every corner of the United States. Now, Jani Appleseed was a great man, great hero, but he had a granddaughter who was an even greater hero, whom very few people have ever even heard of, and her name was Jani Bodhi. Now, some folks say that Jani Bodhi had the strength of Wonder Woman, the power of Supergirl, and the beauty of Beyonce. Some folks say Jani Bodhi had the wisdom of Manjushri, the compassion of Guanyin Pusa, and the resolve of great strength Bodhisattva. And some folks say that she was no different than you or me. She just chose to do incredible things. Well, whatever the real story is, we know one thing. Jani Bodhi was born to be a hero. On the night that she was born, the heavens opened up and the skies rained down Mandarava flowers. Jani's mother looked at her, sitting in her crib in full lotus position, and she smiled and she said, "One day that little girl is going to grow up and make the Bodhi resolve." She wasn't just whistling Dixie, because by the time Jani was 2 years old, she had already taught herself how to meditate. She sat in meditation for so long, by the time she came out of samadhi, she was already a teenager. And that's when she had a vision of the future, a vision of coast-to-coast bodhisattvas standing upright and virtuous from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water, because in a flash of realization she understood that this land was made for you and me to get to nirvana. But rather than hogging all the bliss of cultivation for herself, she decided to share it with all the people of the world. She decided to teach and transform living beings and to plant Bodhi seeds wherever she went. That's exactly what she spent her life doing. But before she set out on her journey, she decided to make a few vows. She vowed, until all living things work for the benefit of other living things, I will not attain supreme enlightenment. Until every living thing in the universe is a vegetarian, I will not attain supreme enlightenment. Until kindness is more common than stress, I will not attain supreme enlightenment. Until mankind works harder to wage peace than it does to wage war, I will not attain supreme enlightenment. And because she was the prototype of a new Buddhist feminist, she said, until women and girls of all ages, races, and religions can reap the fruits of Bodhi in equal measure to men, I will not attain supreme enlightenment. Having made these vows, she set out to begin her life's work. She followed in Jani Appleseed's footsteps out into the wilderness to plant the seeds of Bodhi wherever her feet passed. Well, she planted Bodhi seeds in deserts, in forests, on the plains, in the mountains, in the valleys. She planted Bodhi seeds in small towns, in rural villages, in suburbia, in the inner city, even in Berkeley. She planted those Bodhi seeds wherever she went, and through the rain and snow, Jani traveled wearing only a thin cotton robe and a hat made out of a rice cooker turned upside down. And in the winter, it was cold. It was real cold. I mean, it was so cold. How cold was it? I'm glad you asked. It was so cold in some places where Jani traveled that cows wouldn't give milk. They only gave ice cream. But Jani didn't let the cold bother her. She vowed to never stop until all living things attained enlightenment. Oh, in the heat of the sun, Jani traveled, planting Bodhi seeds. Oh, and in the summer, it was hot. It was real hot. I mean, it was so hot. How hot was it? It was so hot in some places where Jani traveled that she could fry an egg-free tofu and veggie scramble right on the sidewalk. But Jani didn't let the heat bother her. She just kept planting those Bodhi seeds, guided only by her moral compass and the 5 precepts. She spent her whole life planting those Bodhi seeds. She planted them all over this land, knowing that with proper cultivation, those seeds would ripen when conditions were ripe. She planted those seeds until she was old. I mean, she was real old. I mean, she was so old. She was so old that they started to call new school old school. She was so old they had to change the name of New York City to Old York City. She was so old her birth certificate expired. Now, some folks say that Jani died and went to the big nirvana in the sky. And others say that Jani can never die as long as the seeds she planted continue to ripen. And where can those seeds be found today? In the hearts of cultivators everywhere who plant seeds of their own in their vows and their practice. So if you want to be a hero like Jani Bodhi Seed, you don't have to have the strength of Wonder Woman or the power of Supergirl. You just have to have the strength to make the Bodhi resolve and plant your very first Bodhi seed.